Welcome to The Nation ASEAN Plus. I'm JESSY CHAHAL at Wisma Bernama here in Kuala Lumpur, the home of Malaysia's national news agency. Today we take a look at the stories that made the week with some insightful perspectives from across this very dynamic and diverse region. We've seen some significant developments within the ASEAN bloc this week. So let's start here with Malaysia, where Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has urged Thailand and Cambodia to show maximum restraint after reports of armed clashes along their shared border. In a Facebook post, he expressed deep concern and offered condolences to the families of those killed or injured. The Prime Minister says Malaysia stands ready to help restore calm, warning that ASEAN cannot afford for old disputes to spiral into new cycles of confrontation. He also stressed that the priority now is to stop fighting, protect civilians and return to diplomacy. International media reported that Thailand launched airstrikes near the disputed border, leaving one Thai soldier dead and several others injured. Well, separately, the Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan has voiced deep concern over recent developments along the Thai-Cambodian border. He's called on all parties to act swiftly to ease tensions and prevent any incidents that may jeopardize ongoing peace efforts. He's also highlighted Malaysia's recognition of both nations' commitments through the ceasefire agreement on July 28th, the Extraordinary General Border Committee meeting on August 7th, and the KL Accord signed on October 26th of this year. He stressed the importance of adhering to paragraph 7 of the July 28th ceasefire agreement, which calls on both sides to consult quickly at the local level through existing bilateral mechanisms in the event of armed conflict to prevent escalation along the border. On another development, Malaysia says the latest round of the Southern Thailand Peace Dialogue has agreed to form a new technical working group for deeper discussions and to strengthen the existing peace framework. The government-appointed facilitator, Datuk Muhammad Rabin Basir, says both the Thai panel and the BRN delegation showed strong commitment, agreeing to work toward a practical end state built on three pillars, that is, ending violence, public consultation and a political resolution. Now, he's also welcomed both sides' decision to resume talks after they stalled last August. He's calling it a positive step toward a final settlement and lasting reconciliation in the region. And turning to the economy now, Malaysia's sovereign credit rating has been reaffirmed at the BBB+ with a stable outlook by Fitch Ratings, a move that's been welcomed by the Finance Ministry and the Prime Minister himself. Fitch cites improved political stability, stronger policy certainty and better medium-term growth prospects. The agency projects Malaysia's GDP to grow by 4.6% next year, supported by solid labour market conditions and rising AI-driven and high-tech investments. Now, Fitch also notes steady fiscal consolidation, with the deficit expected to narrow to 3.8% in 2025 and remain on track toward the government's 3% target by the year 2028. Now, in other news, Malaysia's capital market is on track for a stronger finish this year, with Bursa Malaysia expected to outperform 2024 as listing activity remains robust. Finance Minister too, Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan, says the government is now shifting focus towards attracting larger, higher quality companies while strengthening the investment pipeline through GLICs to grow Malaysian firms capable of regional expansion. Bursa is also enhancing its Sharia-compliant offerings to draw more global investors. And here's what the minister said earlier.
I think this year has been a very good year. So inshallah this year Bursa will beat last year's number. Last year we had 55 listings on Bursa, so this year hopefully we'll get to 60 listings. Yeah, and I think amount raised, maybe with the 60 listing we'll get close to 30 billion market cap raised within Bursa, that sort of thing. That's important. But going forward, What we also want Bursa to do is not just about numbers. What we really want is scale. That's important. So I think Bursa will shift their focus a bit in terms of giving more weightages to getting bigger companies to come on Bursa, strengthen the main board as their primary target. So we're in discussion with Bursa in setting a target that's not just about numbers, but also weight of players within the market.
Switching to green technology now, Malaysia has taken another step toward cleaner mobility with the Prime Minister's department receiving a hydrogen-powered Toyota Mirai from the Science and Technology Ministry. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim says the move reflects growing confidence from local and international partners in Malaysia's hydrogen policies and its broader green agenda. He says the initiative will boost cross-border collaboration and spur automotive innovation across Southeast Asia. Anwar adds that the Madani government is committed to leading the region's shift toward green and smart mobility, ensuring a cleaner and more sustainable transport future for generations to come. And in trade news, Malaysia exports over 33 billion ringgit worth of rubber and rubber-based products each year, thanks to research and innovation by the Malaysian Rubber Board. Plantation and Commodities Minister Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani says while the country still imports around 7.5 billion ringgit of natural rubber annually, value-added processing has helped boost high-value exports. Since its founding, the board has commercialized more than 200 R&D technologies and registered nearly 400 patents, cementing Malaysia's position as a global rubber innovation hub. Now, looking ahead, the board's 2026 to 2030 strategy will focus on artificial intelligence, robotics, automation and sustainability to meet global challenges and strengthen the sector. And on another front, Batik Air is expanding its domestic network with the launch of the Ipoh Singapore route that starts coming Monday. Perak State Exco member Loh Ziyi says the new service highlights confidence in Perak's tourism potential and strengthens Ipoh's role as an international gateway. The airline will operate 7 flights a week, joining existing services by Scoot and AirAsia, while boosting opportunities for hotels, tour operators, small businesses and the wider tourism community. Batik Air CEO Datuk Chandran Ramamuti adds the route reflects the airline's commitment to connecting Malaysia's vibrant cities with key regional markets. Today we break down a major legal victory for Malaysia. That is, the Paris Court of Appeal has annulled the so-called final award in the Sulu case, declaring the arbitrator had no jurisdiction and no valid agreement existed. What does this ruling mean for Malaysia's sovereignty, for international arbitration and for the years of attempted asset seizures abroad? Well, to help us fully understand the implications of this landmark decision, I'm now joined by LIYANA MARZUKI, former Senior Federal Counsel at the AGC. Thank you, LIYANA, for joining us. Now, the Paris Court of Appeal has annulled this final award in its entirety. And in the simplest legal terms, perhaps, what exactly did the court decide and why is it such a decisive win for Malaysia?
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, Bernama. I think in simple legal terms, the court said that this arbitration should never have existed, Jessie. The arbitrator had no jurisdiction and no legal mandate, and therefore every decision he made, especially the USD 15 billion award, has zero legal effect. It is a decisive win because this is the first time a major appellate court has not only blocked enforcement of the award, but formally wipe out the award at its root. And it removes the claim altogether and definitely is a big win for Malaysia, Jessie.
Does that mean that that is the end of these claims and this law proceedings? Is that the end of the chapter?
This is the final avenue for the claimant to get justice and to get the claim and the enforcement for this case, and I think this is final. And if they want to restart or reinitiate the case, it will be futile in a way because there was this decision that the case has been decided as procedurally wrong. And I think for Malaysia, this is the final chapter for this arbitration matter on Sabah.
Right. Now, France has already refused enforcement of the partial award in 2023, and the French Supreme Court upheld that last year in 2024. What does this consistent pattern of rulings reveal about the credibility, or perhaps in this case, the lack of it, behind the Sulu claims?
I think it shows a very clear and consistent pattern, Jessie. French courts at every level never accepted the credibility of these claims. And when these separate courts over 3 years reached the same conclusion, it signals that the problem was fundamental, not technical. The claim lacked legal merit, procedural integrity, and jurisdictional legitimacy to begin with.
But LIYANA, there was a global funder that backed the Sulu claimants. They were known as Therium. Does this annulment then send a warning to litigation funders about risks of supporting claims that may border on a lack of process or abuse of process, and lack of relevancy, lack of proof, and finally lack of substance?
Litigation funders is just like any other investors. They are on, their motive is commercial, their motive is really on ROI, their return on investment. So the answer to your question is absolutely. Litigation funders actually are expected to support the disputes that are grounded in law, not claims that skirt legality or rely on procedural shortcuts. The annulment, I think, sends a strong message. Funding cases that border on abuse of process carries serious reputational, financial, and regulatory risks as well. So for Therium, I think this outcome is not just loss of investment, a hole on their pocket, but is a public reminder that funding sovereign-related disputes requires strict due diligence on the claimants and on the merits of its case.
LIYANA, I take you back to, I think it must be in the time frame of within 24 months or so ago, when we read, as not just headlines but in daily news about Malaysian assets, or rather the attempt on some of Malaysian assets abroad. Now, with the final award now annulled, what happens to all the previous attempts to seize Malaysian assets?
Basically, Jessie, they are effectively dead. Once the final award is annulled, the legal basis for any seizure evaporates. Enforcement relies on a valid award. Now that the award has been declared void, any ongoing or future enforcement action collapses. Malaysia can now move confidently to have all enforcement attempts closed, reversed, or struck out in every jurisdiction.
Well, is this just simply a legal win? Really, how should Malaysians interpret this victory? Because does this also speak to Malaysia's ability to defend our sovereignty in international arenas should this sort of issue occur again?
I believe this is more than a legal win, Jesse. It is a statement about Malaysia's capacity to defend its sovereignty at international stage. For several years, 3 years, Malaysia defended itself simultaneously in Spain, France, and Netherlands, also in Luxembourg and other jurisdictions, and did so consistently. It shows that when Malaysia mobilizes its legal, diplomatic, and technical teams, the nation is fully capable of protecting its territory, its assets, and its constitutional integrity.
Well, this has been, fairly a long battle, and we are finally at the end of it. Does this ruling then, as I've asked you earlier as well, close that chapter? Or perhaps it's more accurate to say that Malaysia has now successfully set a precedent that will deter any future attempts to challenge the country's sovereignty?
It definitely closes the chapter decisively because the award has been nullified at the highest enforcement venue chosen by the claimants themselves. And more importantly, it sets a global precedent that Sabah status is not up for negotiation, that historical agreements cannot be misused to undermine a sovereign nation, and that Malaysia will push back successfully against any attempt to internationalize or commercialize its territorial integrity. The ruling therefore deters future attempts, definitely, and the message is clear: Malaysia will defend Sabah, and courts will not entertain manufactured jurisdiction by any arbitrator.
Well, we're also reading in headlines where it says Sulu case is now history. Claimants owe Malaysia nearly 1 million ringgit. So where does that take us from that point?
Yeah, that is the additional decision made by the Paris court for Malaysia because of the defeat by the claimant. They are asked and directed to pay Malaysia 200,000 euro as cost for the whole duration of the case. And I think is a big win for Malaysia, is a big win for the whole rakyat. And I think we should congratulate AJ Chambers, Attorney General Chambers, and also the Minister of Law for this success.
LIYANA, thank you for weighing in and really giving us clarity on the end of this particular case and a close to this chapter. We'll speak to you again. Well, I'm off to another break. We'll be back with more updates right here on The Nation ASEAN Plus. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching The Nation ASEAN Plus. Now, a grim scene from Myanmar's Rakhine state. A hospital in Rauk-U, meant to save lives, was instead torn apart by an airstrike. At least 30 people were killed, many of them patients who never saw it coming. More than 70 others were injured. Daylight images now lay bare the devastation, a stark reminder of the toll this conflict continues to take. From there, we move on to some politics in Thailand, where Thailand is bracing for a major political shift. Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul says he is returning power to the people, a clear sign he's ready to dissolve parliament. The request is now with the king, and if approved, an election must take place within 45 to 60 days. This sudden move comes as a deadly border clash with Cambodia enters day 4. Leaving so far 20 dead and nearly 200 hurt. And as Thailand navigates a possible election, tensions at its border with Cambodia continues to rise. Thailand's foreign minister says tariffs should never be used as pressure, insisting Cambodia must take the first real step to stop the violence. Fresh clashes have killed at least 12 people and driven hundreds of thousands from their homes. US is urging both sides to honor their promise to end the fighting. But tonight, fear and uncertainty still hangs over the border. And as the border between Thailand and Cambodia is a flashpoint once again, Cambodia says it is ready to talk immediately, yet Thailand demands proof of sincerity before dialogue can begin. Heavy weapons line the frontier and at least 13 lives have been lost, hundreds of thousands forced from their homes. Despite US and Malaysian efforts, talks have stalled. And with fear and uncertainty and heartbreak lingering over the region, it is caught in relentless conflict. Well, still with Thailand, the SEA Games 2025 opened in spectacular fashion as Raja Mangala Stadium transformed into a shimmering sea powered by 800,000 litres of water. Drones, lasers and flames lit up the night, while underwater ballet and flyboard performers celebrated unity across 11 nations. Malaysia's contingent marched proudly in modern batik before Thailand's Olympic champion Panipak Wongpatanakilit, the grounding, eco-friendly first green flame that marks a bold, sustainable beginning to the Games. Well, in the meantime, Cambodia has withdrawn from the ongoing 33rd SEA Games in Thailand, citing safety and security concerns amid escalating border tensions. Southeast Asian Games Federation CEO Chayapak Siriwat says the 30 Cambodian athletes who attended the opening ceremony will now have to return home immediately with a formal withdrawal letter submitted to the organisers. The withdrawal mainly affects karate events where the number of competitors no longer meets regulations, though an arbitration panel may allow competitions to proceed with gold and silver medals awarded. Cambodia had initially planned to compete in 21 sports with over 300 athletes, but had already scaled back participation due to ongoing border tensions. On another ASEAN country and updates, the Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto in Moscow on Wednesday, praising the strong and growing military ties between both countries. Putin offered help as Indonesia plans its first nuclear power plant by the year 2032. They also discussed wheat trade, which resumed after a pause this year. Prabowo called relations quote-unquote excellent, while Russia welcomed Indonesia's balanced stance on Ukraine and highlighted recent joint naval exercises. Now, deadly floods and landslides have hit northern Sumatra in Indonesia, killing 950 people and leaving 274 missing. Neighbouring Thailand and Malaysia reported around 200 deaths. Officials say the island needs 51.8 trillion rupiah, or $3.1 billion for recovery. Aceh needs the most, followed by North Sumatra and West Sumatra. Local authorities are calling on Jakarta to declare a national emergency to speed up rescue and relief. Now, another heartbreaking news in Indonesia. A fire broke out at a 7-story building in Jakarta on Tuesday, killing 20 people. The head of Central Jakarta Police said the fire had been extinguished and efforts are still ongoing to find more possible victims inside the building. The blaze, which started on the first floor around midday, spread to upper floors while some employees were having lunch. The office houses Terradrone Indonesia, part of the Japanese firm Terradrone Corporation. Both companies did not immediately respond to requests for comments. Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of The Nation ASEAN Plus. We hope that you have found this informative, and this wraps up this weekly roundup of ASEAN news. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.